Hi, I'm Micah Clark. Thank you for joining us today. Last week we had an interview with Mark Hall, a county councilor in Noblesville, talking about property taxes. This week we pivot with the second half of this interview, talking about a ministry that he and his wife started. I hope you enjoy it. When you ran the last time, you had more name ID than you did before, not just because you run before, but because you started a new ministry. Got a lot of positive. Tell us about Feeding Team in Hamilton County.
Sure. Yeah. I'm glad you asked. I'll leave you one or two of these as well.
People have seen, if you live in Hamilton County, you've seen these boxes around at churches and places.
Yes.
Actually, not boxes. They're like sheds.
Yeah, they're big, 6 foot tall. So let me take a step back because I was accused a couple of times in op-eds that we did this for political gain. Mm-hmm. So let me take you back so you understand the backstory, if I may. Have we got time for this?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we started doing food charity within our business over 20 years ago. And the primary source, we would go down and work with Hyatt at Shepherd Community Center, and we would send our employees down, and we would go buy food and buy groceries, and we would serve food. And somewhere hidden in a book somewhere is a really bad picture of me wearing a hairnet, serving food alongside the Shepherd kids. Wonderful experiences and working with Hyatt. So Lisa and I were praying in 2018 what we felt the Lord was leading us to do as we went into 2019. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand we'd been beaten in an election. We're pretty beat up. We're thinking, okay, Lord, you've shut that door. What do you really want us to do? And coincidentally, I meet with Hyatt on a pretty regular basis, and he heard my calamity and trying to seek God's face for 2019. And Jay said, I have an idea. So credit Hyatt. He brings out a newspaper article from the Louisville Courier Journal's Courier, I think it is, and he shows an article about these outdoor free food pantries all around Bullitt County, Kentucky.
Okay.
And the Nazarene Church had 40 of them spread all around Bullitt County, Kentucky. He said, I think this might be just the thing for you. And so he connected me with the pastor that led the effort. And as we prayed through it, we really felt like, this is the Lord leading us to go do this. We started the process. Didn't have any idea how to run a charity. Zero idea. Had no sources of food. Had no way to go buy materials yet. Nothing. So we completely plagiarized the Nazarene Church's model. Uh-huh. We took their building plans and their model, and we added a funding source to it, and we started knocking doors. The funding source being our business. Mm-hmm. So Talent Logistics, one of the companies that we own, takes about a quarter of a point of every sale and goes to buy food for the pantries, or materials to build the pantries, or gas in the box truck, or insurance. So if you do business with our company, it actually feeds the charity. Okay. So roll tape forward a few months. The first 6 were built, and they've been built by high school students. They've been built by Eagle Scouts. They've been built by corporations. I am not a carpenter. I have repaired a few over the years, but I have not built one from scratch. It's people much, much more talented than me that go and do this. But these folks are just amazing. Our first 6 were built by kids at Ivy Tech.
Okay.
In J.R. Gaylor, the Association of Building Contractors
Shop class
construction program.
Yeah.
And they're sitting inside of Ivy Tech, and we get a phone call, COVID hits. Okay. They go, you have to come get these, or we're locking the school. You're not going to be able to get them for a year. So we call Gaylor Electric up and say, hey, you got to help us. Can you please come get them? And they go pull them up and set them in the parking lot. Now, meanwhile, we're knocking on doors. Hey, would you take a pantry? Wait a minute, I don't want to attract criminals. Mm-hmm. This isn't for criminals. I don't want to have that element in my neighborhood. I don't want that eyesore. Yeah, we dealt with city after city after city, and we took almost 100 no's. I'm not going to do that.
Did you have people say, hey, Hamilton County is the richest county in the state? Why do we need food pantries?
Streets of gold.
Yeah.
So you go back to 1985 and 1986. These pantries are designed for what I call gap families. Mm-hmm. So in 1985 and 1986, Lisa and I are living at 146th and River, south tip of Hamilton County, south tip of Noblesville, sorry. And we didn't know anything about church pantries or trustees. We didn't know anything. She's working full-time, I'm working full-time. It was salad days for our life. 2 kids at home. We knew we were going to have a third. And then something goes bump in the night. In our case, it was a car engine blown and an insurance bill hit all at the same time. What are we going to do? We get paid on Monday. So more than one time in 85 and 86, supper was a can of Kroger Cost Cutter beef stew and a baked potato. Yep. So when I go out and talk, I get to sermon or pulpit fill sometimes and give this sermon. It was embarrassing. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know about trustees. We weren't going to go to ask somebody for help. We were too embarrassed. We're going to get paid on Monday. But how do we feed Amber and Ashley until we get paid on Monday? Gap family. We took the data from the American Community Surveys survey, which is a subset of the census, and said, show me families of 4 or more that have $40,000 a year in income or less. And the map just lit up. Hamilton County has 40,000, depending on what day it is, people that are food challenged. And what I mean by food challenge is they don't know where one of their next 3 meals is coming from. 40,000 people out of our 382,000 people that live in Hamilton County are food challenged.
And that's probably only gotten worse recently.
It has.
Yeah.
Folks that they live in the right address, they have the right clothes, and they can't feed their kids. You go to their home and they have no furniture and they can't feed their kids. Now, are there indigent people that use the pantries? Sure.
Sure, yeah.
Homeless people that use the pantries? Sure. We targeted the locations to put them near clusters of Gap families or where Gap families hang out. Health department. We launched a new pantry at a tattoo parlor last week. Yep. At a theater in Westfield last week. So coming from the idea from J. Hyatt and the Nazarene Church, adding a funding source to it, we're now at 67 pantries.
In Hamilton County?
Throughout. In Hamilton County is about 52. We have them in Seymour, in Anderson, in Kokomo, in Jay County, in Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Okay,
in
so
Tulsa,
it's caught fire.
Oh my goodness, yes. We got a note from a pastor in San Luis Obispo, I'm not saying it right,
somewhere
in California,
yeah.
and they want a pantry. We've sent plans to 10 states, Washington, D.C., and here's our plans. Here's the operating manual. Here's how to do this. Yeah. This is about finding a way to feed hungry people. And when you approach it from that perspective, it really renders moot the argument that you just do this for politics. It's a heck of a note. We've been doing this for over 20 years just to get a part-time county council elected seat. No, that doesn't work.
That's a lot of work.
Hundreds of hours every year that you put into it. Yeah. We have over 100 volunteers, and God love Lisa. She manages the volunteers. We have no paid employees. And we have folks that go and adopt a pantry. And if you're looking for a pantry location, www.feedingteam.org. We have partners all over the state that are requesting them now. It is grown beyond our imagination. It's really cool to see what God has done with this.
Are they? I know our church has one. I see them a lot. Are they mostly at churches, or are they in all different types of places?
We try to not just put them at churches. There are a lot because the churches will have classes. You know, we have youth groups that have adopted them. We have Sunday school classes that have adopted them. But we have, like I said, we have them at a tattoo parlor, and the tattoo parlor took them on, and we prayed over it, and they joined us in the prayer, and it might be the only time they ever see anything that reminisces a church. Yeah. And a theater over in Westfield, we have them on school grounds. See, because it came from our business, there's no issue of separation of church and state. If it came from a church, if it was a church sponsored, we couldn't put them on school grounds or government grounds. We have them on county fairgrounds property, we have them in school properties, we have them at churches, we have them at businesses.
So when a church or tattoo parlor
yes,
adopts them, do they fill it, or what is their job? Is their job to make sure it's...
It's about half and half.
Okay.
So the volunteers will come every other Wednesday and pick up hundreds of crates of food that they will take, and they adopt a pantry. So they sort it, clean it, check expiration dates, make sure that there's nothing in it that shouldn't be there. Those are funny stories I'll share with you in a bit. The other ones about half are fully adopted by the host.
Okay.
So the host might have a food pantry inside, so it's a church food pantry or it's a public food pantry, and they're only open the third Thursday of the month or the second Sunday afternoon, so they have limited hours. But this model is 24/7, 365, completely anonymous, no questions asked. If you pull up and you're hungry, you have a place to get food anytime, 24/7, 365, which makes the model susceptible to theft and pilferage. We've taken the position that's between them and God. If they take it, which does happen, that's really on them.
Right.
My life verse, Colossians 3:23 and 24, is on every pantry. You will find proselytizing material in pantries from time to time, invitations to all sorts of worship services, invitations to work fair, invitations to come and apply for jobs, invitations to come to that particular church or an event. But what I've learned over the years, we encounter lots of people when we stock the pantries that don't want to have anything to do with Jesus. Because their kids are hungry. They don't care to know about the Lord if their kids can't eat.
Right.
And some of the most desperate people that we've met have made really bad decisions because they're trying to feed their children. And they'll go and shoplift or they'll steal or do something. And we try to coordinate with local law enforcement every time we put a pantry out, so we don't put them in Section 8 housing. We'll put them near Section 8 housing, so they have to walk to it. That way we try to avoid conflict and fights. As we sit today, we have requests for another half a dozen.
Okay.
So we think we'll be middle 70s by the fall.
Wonderful.
And we're just holding on. God's just continuing to open up doors. We're taking it step at a time. There'll be another one going on the east side of Indianapolis. We have a few at 42nd and Post.
Okay.
There's another one that just got requested up in the north side of Noblesville at a Lutheran church. It started from prayer. It continues to be under prayer. Just to watch what God's done with it is cool. And to be a part of that, to watch how anybody can come to a no questions asked pantry and put food in it. I'll be driving back and forth to work or to an appointment, and I happen to go by a pantry, and I'll see somebody taking food out, which always warms my heart.
Yeah.
And then I'll see somebody pulling up, and they're putting food in. It's a take what you need, give what you can model. And to have so many people come alongside and be a part of it.
Because they know
really
how
a
tough
blessing.
times are.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely.
They know they've been blessed, or they know people who've used it before.
It's as easy as going to get an extra can of beans out of your cupboard and going and putting it in a pantry that'll bless somebody else.
Right.
And we'll never know this side of heaven the impact that we can have on somebody. The desperation of not having a meal will make people do desperate things. The desperation of not having a meal for their children
Right.
will make them do dire things.
Yeah.
So it's really a blessing to see people do this all the time, kids especially.
Yeah.
And to see parents or
Adopt
grandparents,
pantry.
oh my goodness, to see a parent or a grandparent bring a child and have them come alongside and be a part of contributing into a pantry. It's just an incredible
Now, I know
blessing.
there's a few things you've had put in your pantries that you didn't want in there.
Oh yes, I got to tell you
It
a
needs
story.
to be non-perishable.
You love people's hearts.
Yeah.
Fresh baked. It was still warm pumpkin pie.
Oh,
In on a pantry shelf, non-refrigerated pantry shelf, I might add. We didn't know how long it was there. Was it warm because the sun was out? Was it warm because fish that was under plastic, like you bought it at Kroger or something, and it was already green and bubbling. Yogurt, meatballs, cowboy steak, pork chops. But the worst smelling one of all was a leek. And I'm a city boy. I'm not a farm boy. It was a leek, and it was like this big and that around. I got out of the box truck. I could smell the stench before I even opened up the door. It was rancid, half-drunk beer. People put a can of beer inside the pantry. People will come and put a peanut butter. Peanut butter's big in our world. Peanut butter and ramen's big. Yeah. And somebody would take their fingers and scoop up some peanut butter and eat it and then put it back in.
Just take the jar.
Just take the jar. Please, just take the jar. Cat food, pet food. if the person's not eating, their pet's not eating.
Right. That's not a bad idea because it costs too. Yeah.
We use one of the shelves for feminine hygiene products. You'll see people will put Christmas gifts, coloring books, things for children, adult diapers. So we've turned it into as close to a full service as we can. We're not a snack pantry. We try to provide meals.
Right.
And if folks want to put things that would be of benefit to families, those same gap families, one of the ladies that has adopted at our Arcadia Brethren Church, they put loving blankets.
Okay.
So they'll keep them in the bottom shelf, so if anybody is cold, they can come and get a fresh blanket.
Okay.
If it's gone, they put a new one in. And they use that as a rotation to minister to people that would probably be indigent or homeless. So it's cool to see folks come alongside it. It's amazing to see what God's done with it. Everyone has its own identity. At the fairgrounds or by the river, we get a lot of transient workers. So we can't put cans that have to require a can opener.
Right.
These are folks that are camping out, so we put pop tops.
Okay.
Wilson's Farm Market donates crates of plasticware.
Okay.
So the plasticware makes its way into those pantries. Sometimes we've actually put little hand crank can openers in those same pantries to really accommodate a different kind of crowd. At the fairgrounds, they provide meal cards, how to make a meal based on what's in there.
Okay.
They invite people to come inside and use its public facility, public restrooms, and use that to clean up. And they give them a backpack with toiletries and paper products, toothpaste, toothbrush, shaving kits. And that's completely just of the folks that work there at the 4-H Extension.
So it takes on a life of its own.
Everyone has a life of its own, every single one.
So if we have somebody listening, and we do have people all across the state who watch this, Fort Wayne, Evansville, and a church is interested in Feeding Team, give me the website again.
Sure, feedingteam.org. It's on the card, www.feedingteam.org, and then there's a QR code on the back, or you can email lisa@feedingteam.org or mark@feedingteam.org as a way to get in touch with us. The phone number is on there as well. Our Facebook page. So we pin all of the addresses on our Facebook page.
Okay.
It may not have 66 and 67 yet,
But
since that
somebody
just
can go
went
to
out
Facebook
last week.
and find where it's at.
Facebook can find it. There are lots of videos. We also write a monthly column in the Hamilton County Reporter.
Okay.
So you can go to Hamilton County and read the Reporter, and there are, there's probably 40 articles now over the years of things and stories that you can hear about local neighbors, their challenges with hunger, the stories of how people have overcome, and there are dozens and dozens of those stories, gut-wrenching stories of how neighbors have helped neighbors, and that's really all this is.
Yeah.
If you have a heart to help hungry neighbors in your part of the state or in your part of the world, this is something that's a relatively easy model. If you can't afford to build the box, we'll find a way to get it funded. We'll connect you with food sources. This is about being able to be the hands and feet of Christ in a very real, practical way. And then the conversations that will happen as a result are just incredible.
Well, the greatest commandment, love God, then love your neighbor as yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is living that out personified. It's not hard, but it does require some effort. It's 2 or 3 hours a week of volunteer time if you do it right, making the connections with the right food. There are food suppliers that will give you seconds because they're just going to destroy them. But yes, you can go and raise money and you can buy food. We're buying seconds now from different food distributors around the country. And we'll make those connections, and they bring them in on a semi and they drop them off at the office, and volunteers descend like a horde of worker bees, and they cut them up and put them all in storage, and then folks come and pick them up and go fill pantries. There are some pantries that we never touch. There are other pantries that get adopted by the location, and then when they get short, they run short. Hey Lisa, hey Mark, could you help us? And we run out some food or make sure that they've got the supplies that they need to address the need. I think it was less than 10 days ago we put the one out at this tattoo parlor. I happened to drive downtown and drove by it, and it was gone, completely empty. There wasn't like one little can of beans left. Drove by the next day on 10th Street, and the folks from the tattoo parlor had restocked it.
That's great.
That's the idea.
Yep.
They're being the hands and feet of Christ, whether they acknowledge it or not.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
So we would love to have conversations about pantry locations or volunteers, or expanding the mission. I'm working to try to make connections with Franciscan Health. They have reached out and asked, and with the American Legion. So the American Legion tends to be, those kinds of social organizations tend to be great places for the gapped families.
Right.
You know, those folks, there are 4 or 5 people in a family, they make too much money to qualify for public assistance. That's the location we're trying to target. We don't want it in those neighborhoods, we want it near those neighborhoods. That makes sense?
And a lot of those folks don't want public assistance. They just want to get through their next pay.
Yep. That's exactly right. They don't want the embarrassment.
Right.
Frankly, they don't want to be Bible thumped. They don't know about trustees or how to do that, and they have to qualify.
Right.
To bring an ID and show you my income. These are no questions asked. You can pull up in a brand new Mercedes-Benz. If you say you're hungry, we don't care. If you say you're hungry, we always want to have a place for you to get a meal, period, full stop.
Yeah. Well, that told us a lot about the need of the poor and the hungry in Hamilton County. If you'd like to learn more about that ministry, maybe you'd like to do something like this in another part of Indiana, I'd like to talk to Mark about that, you can contact them, find out more about that with feedingteam.org. That's feedingteam.org. Thank you for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I'm Micah Clark with the American Family Association.